thou in whose presence my soul takes delight, on whom in affliction I call, my comfort by day, my song in the night, my hope, my salvation, my all. Father God, in Jesus' name, we bless thy name for blessing us today. We thank you for this another day that the Lord has made. We have rejoiced and we have been glad in it. We didn't necessarily rejoice because everything went our way, but something down inside of us told us to give your name the praise anyhow. And we thank you for your wonderful works and your mighty acts towards the children of men. For we realize in you we move and have our being. And we've come to bless thy name for blessing us. While we pray, we want you to search our hearts and try us to know our thoughts. And see if there be any wickedness in us. Lead us in the way everlasting. And if you should find anything that's not right, cast it into the sea of forgetfulness, where it shall never rise to condemn us in this world, neither in the world to come. Hear our prayer, O Lord. Give ear unto our supplication. Have mercy upon us in a time like this. Stretch out your almighty hand in the name of Jesus. Somebody needs you tonight, Lord. Somebody's waiting on you tonight. Somebody's body's racked in pain. Somebody's trouble in their minds. But Lord, stretch out your hands tonight. Stretch it out, Lord. You set the sun ablazing in the sky. You put the stars in the sky. It was you that put the juice in the lemon. It was you that put the song in the bird. It was you that separated the day from the night. Oh God, tonight, my Father, we're asking you to heal the ill of this world. We're living in a sin-sick world. The Bible told us that sin would be a reproach to any people, and we have gone astray, Lord. But we're asking for forgiveness. Try us one more time. Take away the chains from our country. Heal our country tonight. Our country is sick. Oh, God, our country is sick. But fix it tonight, Lord. You can fix it, Jesus. You know how to fix it. You gave us the remedy for it to be fixed. You said if my people that are called by my name would humble the heart and pray and seek my face, then would I hear from heaven and I would heal the land. Oh, healer of the land, heal us tonight. Oh, body and soul, calm our problems, rebuke the devil, cast out all sin and evil everywhere. Remember the president of our nation, the governors of our states, the mayors of our cities, every black man, every white man, every rich man, every poor man. For we are the Heavenly Father's children, and you love us one and all. Thanks be to God. God, I thank you tonight, because you've just been good from the rocking of our cradles until the present moment. And for these things we say thank you, Lord. For these things we say thank you. For everything we say thank God. Oh, glory be to God. We sing thank you, Lord. And when the trees shall clap their leafy hands, and when the bushes shall wave their branches, when the redeemed of the Lord go marching in, lead us to the land where the wicked will cease from troubling, and the weary shall be at rest, where every day God sends will be Sunday. Sabbath will have no end at all, and God's children said.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. It's Thursday, October 6th, 7 a.m. hour. Many of you may have been listening to our 6 o'clock hour, Politics and Grits with Kevin Peterson. Goes on from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. every Thursday morning. Usually you get the best of politics and grits, a rerun, so to speak, during our 6 o'clock hour, and then we come on live FM radio 102.9 FM drive time radio across Boston, and on 31, I believe, other social media platforms, some of which are live, some of which you can pick up during the week. We're streaming through YouTube Live, I believe, and just covering all the social media portals in order to allow you to hear this show. We're so appreciative of you listening. I hear throughout the week from people who say, Reverend Peterson, I hear you on Thursday mornings. I don't call in, but I hear you, and they want to show their appreciation not only to this show but to this station, this radio station that Pastor Bruce Wall has developed over the years with the help and support of his staff here, producers. We're just thankful for all of them, Pastor Hobbs and Renee and others who are just plowing away, making sure that these shows happen not only for me but for other broadcasters on this network. So we're so happy about Boston Praise Radio, Black Boston News, and what it provides for the city, particularly for black people across the city, where there are so few other ways or conveyances around which black people in the city can get information, unfiltered information that's not filtered through the Boston Globe or the Boston Herald or even the Bay State Banner, but information that's filtered through people who are in the communities, who are engaging day to day, who don't necessarily have a long-standing bent political agenda, as some of these other institutions have in our city, and they develop those agendas because I guess they have to, and it's the way that they make their way that they make their money and the way that they brand themselves. But this station allows for a free flow of people, the host of these various shows, but also callers to put it all on the line, to talk about those things that are of interest, to probe ideas, to present contradictions to what the status quo is. And we know that the media in this city is one which tries to shape opinion and shape the direction, particularly for black people in this city. And this station just allows us to counter that in some ways. So we're happy to have this venue, and people are listening. I'm glad to hear that. I heard from a couple of Boston City Councilors last week, some of whom weren't happy about what we were saying on the redistricting issue and how we were pushing for the reinstatement of the committee chair of the past committee chair of the redistricting committee, Ricardo Arroyo. How we were pushing for that, and some of the leaders of the Boston City Council, I won't name them, gave me a call immediately, wondering why we were pushing for something as significant as that. Our brother Arroyo was pushed off of that committee in the middle of a campaign because there was believed to be some kind of scandal attached to his life, and realized that there wasn't much to it. And in an unprecedented way, the leadership of the Boston City Council removed him. And even after the so-called scandal passed, the leadership of the Boston City Council refused to apologize, refused to acknowledge that perhaps a mistake was made. And I went directly to leadership last week and sat in the offices there and had the conversation around how this was a mistake and injurious to the redistricting process, and that Brother Arroyo, should be reinstated, at least as co-chair of the redistricting committee, because he brings so much skill and so much insight, and brings a certain perspective to the redistricting committee in terms of its leadership, that it's important that he is allowed to lead, and the leadership of the council, white leadership of the council, just refuses it. And it puts us all in a bad position, quite frankly, if Boston is going to live up to its credo, its commitment of being a cradle of liberty. You got to be true to that. You got to really respond to long-standing racial rivalries and racial antagonisms, and come to the table and try to, if not compromise, try to be better than you were yesterday around the issue of race. So this intractability in terms of not allowing Brother Ricardo Arroyo back into a leadership position on the committee speaks to how damaged we are in racial terms as a city. We don't know if he's going to be reinstated. We hope that he will, but we really have a problem. And the Boston City Council at this moment is indicative of how messed up we are around the issue of race, where we can't talk to each other and where we can't look beyond our racial histories to come to a point where we identify what some of the real issues are in terms of justice and address them. We remain mired in trouble. So we appreciate those folks for listening, and we keep them apprised, and we keep them in prayer as they listen. And even though we may come to chastise them at some points, we hope that they would be patient and understanding, because we consider this show, Politics and Grits, as a place where we can foster healing and reconciliation and compromise. Compromise being a variant of the word co-promise. When we come to issues of differences, perhaps we can co-promise each other things that we perhaps would not have done without certain antagonisms over certain issues. So we can co-promise, we can compromise over issues. Compromise is not a bad word. So for those who are listening, we hope we can get beyond that. And we continue to follow the redistricting effort. November 7th, I believe, is the deadline for newly drawn redistricted maps in the city of Boston. And the committee is tied up in terms of how we move certain precincts on the map in certain ways, so that there is racial justice. The redistricting process, for the most part, is guided by the Voting Rights Act, the 1965 Voting Rights Act, which continues to come under peril. We'll talk about that at another on another show. That issue around Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act is coming before the Supreme Court. We'll get experts on the line at some point to sort of talk about that. But with regard to the VRA in Boston, it provides a template, a guideline around how we should redraw districts every 10 years. And there's a controversy in the Boston City Council, not only around why it's taken so long to get to this point, and now we're rushing into a deadline, but how we are going to redraw lines across the city that take into account maximizing the political power and the community interest, the competitiveness within districts, within communities of color, while giving balance to those districts in terms of race, but also in terms of population. That's a stipulation. How do we get to that task? Now, what's controversial this time around is whether or not we pack too many people of color, black people in particular, in a certain district, a Dorchester Mattapan district? Do we pack too many into that district so as to give opportunities for whites in other districts, which they otherwise would not have? Is that the right thing to do? So there's some tension between what we do with precincts that are currently in District 5, which is Mattapan and Hyde Park and Roslindale, and what we do with precincts that are in District 4, which is Dorchester and Mattapan, and how we do all this within the context of supporting communities of interest. So we're mired in that, and we're going to continue to talk about the redistricting issue. We're going to continue to focus on how we approximate getting a new map that reflects electoral justice in the city. And then, of course, we stay on the issue of reparations and repair. We're not letting that go. We had a marvelous guest last week, our brother Jay Augustine from the Duke Divinity School, talking about his new book on reconciliation. And he gave us a really, really sort of insightful exploration into sacred reconciliation, civil reconciliation, interpersonal reconciliation, how that plays into a larger schema of repair, and how that might be useful in the city of Boston. So we continue the work around reparations and exploring it publicly. Our next public forum is November 17th at the Grove Hall Library. November 17th, 6 p.m. We're going to have our second iteration of the reparations public discernment project. And all this is in the interest of addressing some of the critical issues in the past around how people of color have not fared in the best light in this Commonwealth, in this city, both of which purport to be at bottom a city and a Commonwealth that favors liberty and justice and democracy. So we'll continue with this Faneuil Hall issue. We're glad to have the support of City Councilor Tanya Fernandez Anderson, who continues to assist us and gives us guidance around reparations, around the name change of Faneuil Hall, and those things are interconnected. So we're going to talk about reparations in the second hour. We have a couple of national guests on from the National Assembly of American Slavery Descendants, NAASD. We're going to talk to them. They have a particular position in terms of how we should be thinking about reparations in terms of who or to whom is reparations directed. Is it directed in the United States, and particularly is it directed towards those descendants, those direct descendants of American slaves? Or do we open up the bucket, so to speak, to allow for immigrants from the African diaspora to participate and engage in reparations in whatever form it comes in the United States? Do we open it up? So there's a strategic and an ethical question in some ways around how we look at reparations and to whom that repair is directed. So we're looking forward to our guests in the second hour. In this hour, we want to note two things. On October 8th, our voter registration campaign continues. We have an open air voter registration effort there in Grove Hall at the Mecca Mall. We're organizing and collaborating with Prophetic Resistance, our sister Danielle Williams. We're gathering there at 12 noon. We have volunteers who are showing up at 12 noon at Grove Hall. We'll be there until 4 or 5 o'clock, registering people to vote and providing information on a nonpartisan basis on the upcoming election, which is 5 weeks from yesterday or 2 days ago. So we're encroaching on the voter registration deadline. We need volunteers, but we also, more importantly, we need people to register to vote within our community. So if you moved recently, you're in a new home or apartment, or you just moved into the city, or you just turned 18, register to vote. And we'll be out there right in Mecca Mall over near the Dunkin' Donuts. We'll have a table out there, and we'll have some volunteers. We'll have some coffee and hot chocolate and donuts and all that sort of stuff. We want to invite you to join us in the voter registration campaign. Then on Saturday, and this comes to our guest who's on the line, Jean-Luc Parit. On Saturday, there is a rally around creating in an official way Indigenous Peoples Day, a day dedicated specifically to the history, the longevity, the purposefulness of our indigenous people, our native people of this country, why they're so critical to who we are today in the Commonwealth, in the United States. And it's a way that we point towards the issue of repair and reparations for our indigenous brothers and sisters who have suffered more than any in terms of racial oppression in this country. The decimation of tribes all across the nation is as tragic or even more tragic than even the decimation of African communities as they were brought into slavery here. There is no way really to sort of compare the two. The two histories and legacies in terms of racism and the attempted annihilation and exploitation of black folks and native folks in this country needs even more to be brought to our attention. So on this coming Saturday, folks from the indigenous peoples communities across the Commonwealth, along with other communities who support these communities, will be marching across downtown Boston. I'm proud to have been a part of this march every year for the last few years, and I'm proud to have been given an opportunity to speak at these marches, bringing attention to the issue of justice to Native American people in terms of the change of the state flag, but also the removal of the Christopher Columbus statue, which was down in the North End. It's not there anymore. We're happy about that. We also need to change the name of or reorient the public to the new name of the so-called Christopher Columbus holiday to Indigenous Peoples Day. So we're happy to have our brother Jean-Luc Parit on. Good morning, Jean-Luc. Let's talk about what's happening on Saturday. Always glad to have you on. I hope you're doing well. I think you may be out of town, but let's talk about what's happening on this coming Saturday, October 8th.
Yes, good morning, Kevin. So this Saturday, October 8th, North American Indian Center of Boston with United American Indians of New England, New Democracy Coalition, Italian Americans for Indigenous Peoples Day, and Cultural Survival will be holding our annual march for Massachusetts statewide Indigenous Peoples Day. Mm-hmm. Of course, this is not. Of course, this year we do have Boston following up on the executive order from Mayor Kim Janey on Indigenous Peoples Day for citywide. But we're continuing the push for statewide Indigenous Peoples Day. Mm-hmm. And of course, this is something that we hold this day for an opportunity for us to actually put forward our our resistance. It's not a day for our folks to like celebrate and have cultural awareness necessarily. But this is about us putting forward the calls for racial justice, economic justice, social justice, climate justice, and everything. So we're very proud to be standing together, marching together, speaking together, and especially having these intertwined histories around Faneuil Hall being expressed, the effects of slavery, the stolen lives, stolen land. And this is not just about correcting the record or debating unimpeachable facts about the history of what's happened to our people, but this is about, again, this is about what is happening, not what happened. So these are the things that we're going to be calling for when we march on Saturday.
Yeah, and I love your emphasis on what's happening, just in terms of what various communities, the distinct communities, are experiencing. Because what's happening is the continued oppression in 2022, specifically of these two groups, the Native groups and the African American groups, in terms of their life viability in 2022, in terms of health indices, in terms of education access and opportunity within our public school systems, all across the board. Life is, as some would say, nasty, brutish, and short for African Americans or Black people and Indigenous people within the Commonwealth. So the call, of course, is connected to historic wrongs done, but it cannot be disconnected from what's happening in 2022 for these communities. Now, you touched on something that I would like you to expand on a little bit. Acting Mayor Kim Janey issued is it a proclamation claiming this coming Monday as Indigenous Peoples Day? I'd like to hear you clear that up. And then it sounds like you're trying to use that, or that's being used as an opportunity to extend the dedication of this second Monday in October as Indigenous Peoples Day across the Commonwealth. So can you repeat that and really drill down on in terms of what we should know so that we can better prepare to support you?
Yeah. So Acting Mayor Kim Janey did put forward that executive order last year, naming the second Monday in October as Indigenous Peoples Day in lieu of Christopher Columbus Day, meaning replacing Christopher Columbus Day on the city level for Boston. Now, we have had correspondence with the Wu administration to ensure that executive order would be upheld. And not only is the executive order going to be upheld, but just to break some news on your show here, last night at the city council meeting, council actually passed a resolution to fly the flag of the Massachusetts tribe of Ponkapaug. That's actually going to happen tomorrow, Friday, at 11 a.m.
Nice.
So we're expecting folks to come to City Hall, have that ceremony, and then we're going to have the march where we call for statewide change. But it's going to continue throughout the weekend.
That is
into the Monday itself.
And how does this extend to any statewide effort?
So we still have the Massachusetts Indigenous Legislative Agenda, the State of 5 bills. Of course, these are actually very common sense bills in terms of the Indigenous Peoples Day, in terms of banning Native mascots, in terms of protecting Native heritage. Bare minimum things that the Commonwealth can do to be less racist. Let's put it in plain terms. Now, unfortunately, for this legislative session, we were not able to get any of our bills to a floor vote. So we are actually going to continue the call for those bills, inclusive of the statewide Indigenous Peoples Day.
Yeah. Now, let me shift back to what's happening this weekend in the city of Boston. A march begins where, and give us the details of that march, and particularly highlight the flag raising. We all want to be there, be present for when that happens, either tomorrow or on Monday. Give us detail in terms of what happens on Saturday and how that might be connected to the flag raising in particular.
Right. So on Saturday, and we are still finalizing the middle portion of the march. So we are going to start at Park Street Station, which is where we normally start. That's going to happen at noon. We're going to have a gathering. We're going to have our speakers. Of course, we're going to have welcoming remarks from our host tribes. And then we're going to continue through downtown onwards to the final point of the march is going to be Faneuil Hall. And that's where we're going to hear from our friends, our conspirators and liberation here, New Democratic Coalition, talking about the changing of the name, and also, like I said, talking about what is happening to our community members. And so, in this way of working in both of our struggles here, we're pushing forward towards collective liberation.
So you start at noon. You start at Park Street Station over near the Boston Commons. I'm assuming you're marching up Tremont Street, past City Hall, and then into the Faneuil Hall. We call it Slave Traders Hall. Into that area where there's a gathering and a rally. Does the flag raising take place on Saturday, or is that on the holiday itself, the city holiday? Right?
That will be tomorrow, Friday.
That will be tomorrow. Tomorrow, okay.
Yeah, that will be tomorrow, Friday, at 11 a.m. At City Hall Plaza.
Okay.
Now we are still confirming some of the particulars of that.
Yeah.
So there is a possibility that we will pass through City Hall Plaza. But I just want to kind of say that there are some moving pieces when it comes to final.
That's wonderful. In some ways, that's good news. I want to sort of tease out one other thing. You mentioned the former mayor, acting mayor Kim Janey, issued the executive order. It sounds as if that executive order is not permanently standing. So you're appealing to the current mayor Wu in terms of support that executive order, making it permanent, or how is that working? How should we be thinking about that?
So that's been something that there has not been like an official like follow-up executive order to kind of like uphold. It's just that the administration is upholding. Now, I don't know if like in future administrations, if that means that there's going to be some kind of change in policy.
I see.
But at least for right now, the Wu administration is upholding the policy of the Janey administration.
Right. Well, we want to encourage. We know that if Mayor Wu is not listening, and she does from time to time, she follows this program. If she's listening, we want to appeal to her to uphold the executive order established last year in support of Indigenous People Day in the city of Boston. We want to encourage. We're proud to hear that there's progress and affirmation from the Boston City Council in terms of Indigenous Peoples Day, and that this flag is going to be raised over the course of this weekend. I'm going to try my best to be there tomorrow at 11 a.m. And certainly I'm listed, I believe, as a speaker for this coming Saturday. I'm looking forward to being in the well, so to speak. Then again, speaking to the collective efforts of these two groups in demanding social, racial, ethnic, tribal justice for people who have long lived and contributed to the well-being of the Commonwealth. Jean-Luc, I don't want to be remiss in having you talk a little bit more about the organization that you represent. You're chair of the board. Talk about them and talk about the organization and how we might be in touch with the organization or you in terms of our ongoing support. We want to make sure that that's clear to our listeners.
Yeah. Yes, very, very, very briefly. So I'm gonna just say that North American Indian Center Boston started as Boston Indian Council in 1969. So we have an over 50-year history of providing cultural and social services to the Native American community. Folks can find us. Most of our social media hashtags are NAICOB, NAICOB 91. You can find us on Facebook. You can go to naicob.org for our organization's website, find out all of our programming that we have coming up, including the march, and of course how you can donate and support us as well. Is on the website.
No cost or anything associated with the events this weekend. Anyone can join in.
Yes, that's correct. It is open to the public. Of course, we have our speakers list already. So that's one thing that we kind of keep it tight on. But we want to make sure that we have the feet on the ground. So that's the best way that you can support it this weekend.
Yeah, and we can say before I let you go, we can I guess not boast, but be proud of the fact that there was a victory won in some respects in terms of the Christopher Columbus statue not returning to the North End. Can you just give us a little background on what transpired there, and how we're feeling about that space? Are we comfortable about that statue not coming back at all? Christopher Columbus, of course, being someone who led to the devastation and annihilation of African American people, of Native American people in this country. Can you talk about that statue and that place? I hope I didn't lose you. I may have lost you. Okay, I think we did lose Jean-Luc Perit, but we were. I happen to sort of know some of the history, what that history is. It has to do with that statue of Christopher Columbus being pulled down. It was actually someone in the dark of night, I think, decapitated it, took the head off the statue, and it was removed. And then there was a big controversy around whether or not it should be replaced. And eventually, the decision, for the time being at least, is that that statue will not return because it symbolized to the Native American community that Jean-Luc so ably represents. It really sort of symbolizes hate and a disinterest in the history and the legacy of Native American people in this Commonwealth, and rightly so. It should not return. They should keep it put it in a museum, and put a marker around it, a legend around it that talks about the history of it being removed and why it was removed. We think the same thing about so-called Faneuil Hall. Change the name, but also put a marker at that building, an information kiosk around why the people of Boston decided to change the name of Faneuil Hall to some or Slave Traders Hall to some other name. We're looking forward to this coming Saturday. Looking forward to tomorrow, 11 a.m. At Boston City Hall at the flagpole. That's right at the entrance of Boston City Hall. There's going to be the raising of a Native American flag, an iteration. I believe it's the Wampanoag iconography on the flag that's going to be raised high over the city of Boston. We're making progress, slowly but surely, because we are standing in a period of our history where we have the opportunity to make changes around symbols that are oppressive, that stand against the humanity of other people. And I shake my head sometimes and wonder why people want to say that symbols don't matter. They want to simply say that why are we fighting over the change of a name, and why are we fighting over changing a symbol on a flag? Well, symbols matter. They coordinate our public life. They coordinate how we think about policy related to discrimination and injustice. Symbols matter. Those statutes that exist throughout the South that are now being removed stood for white supremacy, which was enacted in forms of policy, of Jim Crow policies. These things are not disconnected. They have relevance. So anyone who wants to say that we're fighting a senseless battle over symbols, then you're absolutely wrong. You don't get it, and we hope that you follow us a little more closely. We who are citizens of the United States, we plant flags in different countries to proclaim certain sovereignty in countries and over certain territories. The flag, the symbolism of the flag, is reflective of our sovereignty, in some ways, our ability to impose our military or economic will in certain areas, but also it's symbolic of perhaps we Americans being welcomed there. But we plant a flag. We use the imagery of the United States as a way of conveying our power, our influence, and all that's refracted into public policies in certain ways: economic policies, military policy, social policy, cultural policy. We can go across the line. So symbols matter, people. So we are working on a line of resistance that is aimed at symbolic representations that need to be addressed. And we don't get to those issues around what's reflected as structural racism without addressing symbolic representations or manifestations of white supremacy. We're glad to have Jean-Luc Parit for those moments. He got cut off. He's in the middle of travel, but we'll see him tomorrow, and we'll see him throughout the weekend on the issues related to Indigenous Peoples Day. It's a good thing that we're going to have this going on in Boston. I want to do just a really quick sort of update as we move towards our 8 o'clock hour tonight. For folks who are in the city of Boston, there is a play, a presentation at the Strand Theater. We Move in Color, a dance representation, African American dance at 7 p.m. at the Strand Theater, 543 Columbia Road. There are a couple tickets that are being offered through Boston Praise Radio. I think you just need to call our producer, Pastor Hobbs, 617-282-0685. 617-282-0685. Just going to give him a call, and ask for your tickets. I think you can get 2 tickets, but I want to encourage you to support this what looks like a wonderful event. I wish I had time to go, but this evening, Thursday, October 6th, at 7 p.m. at the Strand Theater, 543 Columbia Road. We Move in Color. There's a wonderful, I think, rendition of a Paul Goodnight painting that sort of symbolizes what this play or performance is about. So I want to alert you to that. Again, I want to remind folks on the next hour we're going to be talking about our reparations issues, and we got a couple guests calling in from locally and from across the country, and we're going to be talking about what reparations sort of means for us in a larger context. It was a wonderful conference down in Atlanta last week. I didn't get the opportunity to attend, but it was around the issue of reparations, around the issue of the Freedmen's Bank. We're going to educate ourselves around that this morning. What the Freedmen's Bank is, what the Freedmen's Bureau was in the era of Reconstruction, and how that might relate to our current endeavors around racial justice in this country. I want to again make our announcements about this coming Saturday at the Grove Hall Mecca Mall. We're going to be doing voter registration, and we need people to come out to register to vote. There is always underrepresentation and always under mobilization in the black communities in the city of Boston, and we need to make sure that our numbers are up to date and that they're fully maximized in terms of our presence in the city. Every eligible voter within the city of Boston should be a registered voter, and that certainly pertains to people in the African American community, because we are by and large, on average, under registered, and we always under mobilized against the strength that we have. So we want to make sure that we're registered. Anyone who is 18 years or older, who is a citizen of the United States and a resident in Boston can register. They can register this coming Saturday to vote for this coming November 8th election. So want to emphasize that. Tell your neighbor, tell your friends, tell family members. In fact, if you know any folks who are at least 16, we have a new law in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts where 16-year-olds can register. They can't vote until they're 18, but if you're a 16-year older and you're a citizen, resident of the city of Boston, you can come register with us as a high school student on this coming Saturday at the Grove Hall Mecca Mall, beginning at 12 a.m. I'm going to be downtown with our indigenous brothers and sisters for a little bit, but we'll have a team. We're collaborating with Prophetic Resistance, our sister Danielle Williams, who's leading that organization, that faith-based organization. They're going to be there. We're going to be there setting up the tables and inviting people to register and handing out information. If you're in an organization who wants to get information out, that's nonpartisan. That's about information that's about building up a community, about a future community meeting. I want you to be aware that you're welcome to come down and provide information at our table to voters or people who are interested in our ongoing community development issues. And then lastly, I want to remind you before we get into this 8 o'clock hour, which is going to be packed full of folks from across the country and the region. I want to remind folks that this redistricting issue is critical. It's important. It may seem like an issue where, like, it's out of our hands or perhaps inaccessible in terms of understanding what it's about. But if you pay a little attention to how districts are being reconfigured in ways that advantage or support different groups, then I think you might understand how it's so critical that we have our say in terms of how these districts are redrawn. Political power rests in the issue of how, or the matter of how we redraw districts every 10 years. And we did it on the state level last year where we created a new black state Senate district. It wouldn't have existed had we not going into the battle, so to speak, and challenged our state representatives, our state senators, and even the governor around the importance of creating this new district for blacks right in the middle of the city, a new state senate district. There will be a black state senator representing the black community in Boston, because there were some people who paid attention to this issue. And some of those people didn't know what they were talking about early on in the game, and they educated themselves. They joined the New Democracy Coalition in the effort. 12 years ago, we created a new black congressional district. Our current representative, Ayanna Pressley, likely would not be in office if it wasn't for the efforts of organizations like the New Democracy Coalition. We battled. We threatened to sue. We organized other groups around the effort of creating a so-called majority-minority congressional seat. And now we have a champion in that seat. We have a star in that seat who's raising the issue of social and political justice across the country, Ayanna Pressley, Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley. She wouldn't be there. And this takes nothing away from her awesome talent and her charisma and her public policy chops. It takes nothing away from it, but she would likely not be in office had there not been a group of people who said at that point, we need to look at this redistricting issue, however boring it may seem, however much energy it might take from us to learn what it's about. She wouldn't be there. We wouldn't be in this good place without those efforts connected to redistricting. So this is what we do. The New Democracy Coalition is what we do on this radio show, Politics and Grits. Every Thursday morning, we raise the issues around justice for black folks in this city, and we look at strategies and opportunities. And redistricting, of course, is one of those opportunities. Our voter registration efforts, our voter mobilization efforts, another opportunity. We're looking at all opportunities we can to really raise up the value of the city and the Commonwealth by raising up the importance of being inclusive, culturally, racially, of all groups. That reminds me of one issue we got to come to next week as we come to the end of this set. We got to pay some attention to what's going on over at UMass Boston. The decimation of the Africana Studies Department is happening before our eyes. 5 years ago, there were 7 professors. Now there are 1. Budget's been slashed by over $1.5 million. We need to look at the restoration of that department over at UMass Boston. It's a public institution. It's where our high school students go and potentially learn about what African American history, what the extent of where Africa sits in relation to global policy and global understanding. That's where they go to learn these fundamental things. They can't talk about issues of justice, our younger generation, if they don't know, if they don't have access to fundamental information in terms of what Africa means, what African American history means, what the context of what it means to be black. If they can't find those opportunities at one of our flagship public institutions, such as UMass Boston, I'm proud to be connected with Africana Studies as an activist and as a person who lectures there. If they can't get access to what it means, these young people, then we're undercutting a generation of our ability to really engage. We're coming back on the other side of the hour, Politics and Grits with Kevin Peterson. We're going to talk about reparations again and drill down on what it means to repair and reconcile. See you on the other end of the hour.